Hi everyone. A warm welcome to all from MITRA, the Women's Forum of SNE Toronto. One of MITRA's aims is to invite speakers to MITRA's meetings and to learn from their personal and professional experience on matters of women empowerment. This is the first of a series of talks titled Women Who Change the World. Our choice was to hold a talk on the iconic woman Sangamitra from Indian history. Our honorable speaker today is Dr. Shyma P, an academic, a literary critic, and a translator. Dr. Shyma received a PhD from the University of Hyderabad for her studies on social representations in Malayalam cinema. She teaches English at Payyanur College in Kerala. So let's all welcome Dr. Shyma and listen to her talk, which she has researched and compiled specially for MITRA. Over to you, Dr. Shyma.
Thank you. Okay. Right. So, as I said, the paper is titled Sangamitra and Her Afterlives. The term afterlife is a concept that was used by the Jewish philosopher Walter Benjamin while talking about the practice of translation. He discusses, the need to understand the text, any text for that matter, in terms of the differential meanings it accumulates over a period of time based on the changing historical and socio-political contexts. So rather than give more focus on what is called an original text, Benjamin says that a text is open to all sorts of openings, all sorts of readings, interpretations, and translations, which determine the way in which a text becomes contemporary, or that determines the afterlife of a particular text. So the renewal and the reconstitution of a text, the different meanings that it accumulates over a period of time is also important to understand what a particular text means, rather than think about that particular time where the original text was actually published. So this idea of the afterlife, I actually use this idea to understand the figure or the idea called the concept. I would call Sangamitra as a concept. I would call Sangamitra as a text. And we could use this idea of afterlife to understand the position or the importance that Sangamitra had in the discourse of Buddhism. So the term afterlife has been used in the title to explain how the idea called Sangamitra in Buddhist narratives mean, and what is the importance of this presence called Sangamitra. The importance of women in Buddhism has been a debatable issue, and several critiques have come about regarding the abandonment of Siddhartha of his wife and son in his pursuit of enlightenment. Also, there are critiques about how Siddhartha or Buddha was reluctant to accept women into the Sangha in the earlier period, and it took a lot of persuasion by the disciple, by Buddha's disciple Ananda, in order to convince Buddha that he can actually allow women to the Sangha. So finally, it was after a lot of persuasions that women were given conditional access to the Sangha. So all these debates about the position of women in Buddhism, about the importance of the place in importance of women in Buddhism, how does Buddhism see women? Whether there is any difference, you know, regarding how women are conceived in other such associations, other religions, whether there is any difference in the way in which Buddhism treats women. So these have all been matters of dispute and debates, the discourse called Buddhism. So in such a context, I feel that an understanding of Sangamitra ought to be read, or ought to be Sangamitra ought to be understood in terms of how she lives in the contemporary period through various institutions, through various cultural practices, which is as important as understanding Sangamitra as a figure who lived at some point of time in history. So how she is also a presence even now, a presence that has to be reckoned with, a presence that constantly is remembered, a presence that is constantly revisited, is also something that we need to reckon with when we think about Sangamitra. And this is also very important. And that is what I try to discuss. That is what I'll be discussing in this session today. So it would be more about how Sangamitra has managed to live through various ways to the present, in the present, so much so that her name has become synonymous with Buddhist female monastic order of Theravada Buddhism, which I find is as relevant to her material, to her physical existence, which is something that is still debated among scholars, whether she had actually existed or not, whether the person called Sangamitra was actually there as the daughter of Ashoka or not. We have contesting ideas about this. As we know, Sangamitra finds mention as the daughter of the third Mauryan emperor, Ashoka, in several histories of Buddhism, as well as largely the Ceylon documents. There, she is referred to as the daughter of the third Mauryan emperor, Ashoka. So, and she is believed to be born in 282 BC in Ujjaini. And her most important contribution to Buddhism is as a missionary who had disseminated the teachings of Buddha in places outside India as well as in several places inside India. So, one important decision which was taken in the third council of the third Buddhist council, which was held in Patliputra, was regarding the extent to which Buddhism had to be spread to various parts, as well as to flush out the unhealthy practices that were prevalent in monasteries at the time. So following the decisions that were taken in this council, Ashoka decided to send his disciples to send people, missionaries, to all parts of the world to disseminate the ideas of Buddha. So it was during this time that Tissa, who was a king of Ceylon at that point of time, who was also a friend of Ashoka, asked him to send some missionaries to Ceylon as part of ordaining and spreading the ideas of Buddhism there. So it was as part of this that Ashoka sends his children, his son and his daughter, Mahendra and Sangamitra, to Ceylon. So again, there are also, he sends other missionaries to other parts of India, like Malayas, to Gujarat, to Maharashtra, and other such parts of India. Along with that, he also sends children that he had with Devi to parts outside, to regions in South and Southeast Asia. And again, there are contesting views about how this journey happened. There are records, there are historical documents which say that um, the brother and the sister both went together to Ceylon. Mahendra and Sangamitra went together to Ceylon for the dissemination of the religion. But there are also documents that say that it was Mahendra who was sent first, and then later on, the Princess Anula wanted to convert to Buddhism along with many other women in the palace. And since this ordaining of women could be done only by a Buddhist nun, later on, after some time, after Mahendra reached there, again, Sangamitra was, called for, and that is how Sangamitra goes to Ceylon later on. So this is one way in which the journey of Sangamitra is recorded in certain documents. Again, there are references to Sangamitra going to Ceylon at the age of 18. And Sangamitra going to Ceylon at the age of 32. Again, there are documents about how she went to Ceylon before she got married, and how she went to Ceylon after she got married and after she was a mother of a son. So all these, you have all these conflicting, all these different versions of Sangamitra's journey, Sangamitra's travel to Ceylon. Moving on to Romila Thappar's history, or Romila Thappar's description of this event, she actually is skeptical about the existence of such a person called Sangamitra, or whether she had embarked on, whether it was possible for a mother of a kid to embark on such a journey to Ceylon. And she says that this could be part of some lore, some folklore, that actually there was a person called Sangamitra, and that she went on a journey to Ceylon, and there need not be, it need not be true. So this is what Romila Thapar says. The very existence of a person called Sangamitra itself has been called to doubt by certain other historians. In her book Ashoka and the Decline of the Mauryan Empire, Romila Thapar questions the existence of such a daughter or her journey to Ceylon. Even if there was a daughter, she might have faced several obstacles because of bearing a child at that point of time and taking up the travel. The narrative of Sangamitra going to Ceylon with a branch of Bodhi tree, from branch of Bodhi sapling, which he took from Gaya, is possibly a fictional narrative according to Thapar. The story, this is what Thapar says, I quote Thapar, the story of Sangamitra may well be just a pleasant anecdote attached to the main narrative, which gave the chronicles an excuse to indulge in imaginative passages. It is unlikely that Kissa would have permitted Anula to be ordained. She already accrued. So we have such different versions of Sangamitra, the very existence of the person called Sangamitra, and about her travel to this travel that she is supposed to have made to Ceylon for the purpose of ordaining women there. However, rather than go to the factual, legitimacies of these narratives, or worry about whether this is actually true or not, I try to look at how the very idea of the Buddhist nun called Sangamitra is important to the Buddhist discourse. Why? Because it is primarily about a person, about a woman who travels who crosses the sea for this purpose of dissemination of religion and certain other things which I'll be mentioning later on in the paper. And this idea of this person called Sangamitra gets reproduced. It's not as if it is a fiction that remains in certain histories of Buddhist documents, but it is something that gets reproduced even in contemporary media. For instance, there was this television series which was aired in Doordarshan in 1988, which is called Bharat Ek Khoj, based on the book by Nehru, Discovery of India, and two episodes of this series was on Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka, where there is a mention about Sangamitra as a daughter of Ashoka. Similarly, there is this Bollywood cinema Ashoka, starring Kareena Kapoor and Shah Rukh Khan, directed by Santosh Sivan. Again, there also Sangamitra finds a mention as the daughter of Ashoka. There are several institutions which have or are named as Sangha. For instance, in Sri Lanka, there is these are details that I got from the net. So the first school for Buddhist girls, girl students was called or named by the name of Sangamitra. Again, a Sangamitra Day is actually celebrated in Sri Lanka to commemorate the arrival. Yeah, I was referring to the contemporary forms in which Sangamitra still remains in the popular culture and the various other ways in society even today. Again, coming back to the concept of Sangamitra, one thing that is associated with, or one might associate with the idea of Sangamitra is that of a traveling woman, a woman who travels. And traveling and women are not, things that are usually associated in a very not something that is often a celebrated kind of concept, because traveling is considered to be very dangerous for women, at least in developing and underdeveloped countries, and often even in the representations of women and travel in popular media, in cinemas, etc. Traveling for women is considered to be something that ends her up in either rape or some kind of murder, etc. So traveling is not something that is encouraged for women. So it is in such a context that you find a woman who is traveling for the sake of disseminating religion in Buddhist discourse, which is very relevant. There are various narratives of bhikkhunis who have undertaken travels across the seas in Buddhist discourse. Sangamitra may be seen to be a prototype of such a Buddhist imaginary. Narratives that certify the journey of Sangamitra add that the journey was started from the port city Tamlak of the present-day West Bengal. It is a city adjacent to Kalinga and Maurya empires, and it is a commercially viable place like Kalinga, which is a meeting place of several trade traditions and cultures because of the kind of transactions, maritime transactions that happen in these port cities. Many studies point out to the importance that trade and commerce held in Buddhism, unlike in Hinduism, which had to do with the practices of pollution, which was considered to happen if Brahmins, traveled by crossing the sea. Buddha's earliest disciples were merchant brothers, Utkala, Tabasi, and Balika. And references to these disciples are seen in several texts in Pali. Sangamitra's mother, Devi, was also the daughter of a merchant, of a tradesman, as well as a believer of Buddhism. So this was, and as we understand, this travel is not something that is related only with the dissemination of religion, but it also had to do with, the transportation of goods and culture. This was also a time when sea routes were begun to be discovered, and several transactions between India and other places like Rome had already started to happen. Zindrolio, in his book Ancient India and Ancient China, says that the value of several travels had happened for the purpose of the transaction of what is called Saptaratna. He adds that the value that these gems came to represent was because of their importance in the Buddhist tradition. Buddhist values created and sustained the demand for certain commodities traded between India and China during the 1st to the 5th centuries AD. Ratnas has been interpreted as Ratnas has 7 types of Ratnas in certain narratives, as well as certain principles, 7 principles that a Buddhist ought to follow. So we do not know when these values were translated into material goods. So the list of Saptaratnas, as mentioned in Mahavastu, a Buddhist text, are gold, silver, Vaidurya, Spadiga, pearl, and coral. But again, 7 jewels are also associated with the 7 qualities of right conduct, meditation, knowledge, emancipation, insights, etc. And assurance of all these were to assure emancipation for a Buddhist. So how these values came to be translated into material goods is something that we do not know, when that happened. However, later on, worship in the religion called Buddhism came to be associated with contributing flowers, incense, garlands, ointments, powder, clothes, necklaces, gems, and jewels, as well as flags and banners. By the early century of the Common Era, 7 treasures became an item of gift, decoration, and of wealth. A religious merit could be acquired by donating material goods. The travel of Buddhist missionary is also related to the transactions of trade and commerce along with religion, and the imaginary of the travel of Buddhist nuns and Sangamitra hence becomes important as they partake in these transactions of cultures in various ways, as one understands from these narratives. The connection between port cities and Buddhist nuns may also be seen in the Tamil epic Manimegale, written by Chatanar in 171 AD. And this epic talks about the conversion of Manimegale into Buddhism. Manimegale is a daughter of Kovalam and Madhavi, and how she is converted into Buddhism, how she converts to Buddhism. And in this epic, there is a reference to the place where this conversion actually, takes place, where she feels the presence of Buddha, and this happens largely in an island. The place where Manimegale feels the presence of Buddha is significant. It is the island Manipallavam, where the divine spirit Manimegale carries the sleeping Manimegale, and it is in this place that she senses the presence of Buddha and decides to convert to Buddhism. This island is it is said that this island is the island called Naindivu, where traders used to come to buy conch shells and other valuable stones. And this was an important center of trade in the medieval times. As per inscriptions, plenty of international traders who stopped at the island of Kaitis also made a detour to Nainativu. So again, you have an association being made between, Buddhist women and port cities and the transactions that happen there, although it's in a very indirect manner. Now, Manimegale and Sangamitra are imaginaries of women who are given the responsibility to disseminate Buddhist faith. One goes to Ceylon with a Bodhi sapling, while the other is entrusted with an Akshaya Patram, both of which refers to never-ending mercy in the form of knowledge and other forms of material assistance. Women's mobility, imagined in these narratives, is one that alludes to the role of women envisaged in Buddhism. Such journeys could be either those which require crossing the seas or inland journeys. The book called The Biographies of Nuns, written in the 6th century, describes the journey made by Bhikkhunis from Simhala to China in 429 to 432 CE. And the earliest collection of women's writing in India, Therigada, is also replete with such imaginaries of different forms of journeys, which need not be actually physical journeys alone, but also, forms of journeys from a very, a slavish form of existence to an emancipated, form of existence, emancipated beings. Although these narratives deny the need for a meaningless rebirth, they definitely look forward to forms of mobility, which was impossible in Brahmanical social system. And many of the women who came to Sanghas in the earlier periods also were women who belonged to the women belonging to both upper caste and lower caste had actually, come to be a member of the Sangha. And the kind of mobility that they couldn't get in their own households, in their own religion, they kind of achieved in certain other ways as a member of the Sangha. That is what we understand from their, poems that are collected in the poem, in the anthology known as Therigada. These are a collection of poems that depict the experiences of women as they get the freedom to travel as bhikkhunis in search of alms in public spaces. So, this gave them an opportunity to, go to public spaces, which is something that, they couldn't think about in their own religion. They were supposed to be, supposed to remain in the domestic space and do the chores that were expected of them there. Look after the kids, look after the household, etc. etc. So here, this actually depicts experiences of women as they get the freedom to travel as bhikkhunis in search of alms in public spaces, women who could move from the kitchen to the public space, women who could escape from the cruelties meted out to them by their husbands, and women who couldn't bear the grief of losing their dear ones. So all these kinds of women got a certain kind of relief, certain kind of mobility, certain certain kind of emancipation as they moved from that religion to the Sangha. It depicts a collection of narratives where women move on from situations of various forms of deadlock to an emancipated state of existence. In a poem by a nun called Mita, which is a poem that is included in Therigada, these are a few lines, which are a couple of lines taken from the poem by Mita. It is told, happy that a god's body would be mine one day, but I don't want a god's body either. So women who are actually moving to this Sangha, moving from Hinduism to Buddhism, to a Buddhistic form of living, were actually looking for options to, find out a different way of life, find out a way of life which is different from their own slavish form of existence. The desire for transgression from a normative mode of existence is evident in these, narratives, and Sangamitra is emblematic of such a desire of transgression on the part of women. So, even if you look at Navayana Buddhism by Ambedkar, the very idea of Navayana Buddhism, women had a very important role to play in organizing certain several meetings of these Buddhist congregations, and several women converted to Buddhism, and they were a very important part of the new public that was imagined by Ambedkar. So I would conclude here by mentioning how Sangamitra was actually important in or important as a symbol of emancipation of women in the Buddhist discourse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was indeed so very informative and inspiring. On behalf of MITRA and SNA Toronto, we wholeheartedly thank Dr. Shyma, who accepted our invitation and took the pains to prepare and deliver this talk. Thank you so much. Now she will take few questions from the audience, maybe for the next 20 minutes or so.
Can I ask you a few things, Dr. Shyma? Yeah, it was very nice, the nice academic way that you presented it. And also this idea of afterlives that you started off with as the transformation of that story or narrative or text of Sangamitra, which has passed through various ages. But what came to my mind was that unlike India or mainland India, as opposed to Ceylon, Ceylon always remained a Buddhist territory without Buddhism being ever wiped out even for a short while from those times of Ashoka, when Buddhism was taken there. So the likeliness of the story having been corrupted is much lesser than the stories of mainland India, where over time each territory is taken over by a new king. Maybe he destroys all the evidence of the previous regime and things like that. So Sri Lankan stories would have more credibility that way. And also nicely you put across that even so, if Sangamitra is even a concept, there is this great values of women that existed 2,200 years ago. And if Christ's story can be believed today, why not Sangamitra? That this is the way I see it. And you nicely brought out some of those things about crossing the ocean, which was otherwise sacrilege in mainland India for the Brahminical order. I think crossing the ocean was sacrilege always. Then to think that a woman crossed the ocean was definitely something of a progressive thing in terms of women's rights or women's position in society. Few other things also you brought across nicely, that was particularly about Romila Thappar's observations, which I have reservations on, because she was challenging the fact that okay, Sangamitra was the mother of a child, and that could have been a reason why she could not have gone. But then we cannot forget that she was a princess who would have had so much of other services at her disposal, right? So I mean, again, you brought out all those nice points about both the for Sangamitra as a reality, or Sangamitra as a concept, or even a non-entity. So that way you brought out all those things without being biased to either side. Nice academic way you presented it. Those are my observations. My only question to you about what you did not talk was about the pre-Buddhist or pre-Sangamitra era, the social, the landscape in Sri Lanka. Was it casteist like it was probably in India? So, and was Buddhism more of a reformation of the existing social order rather than a new religion? Because it would have been a religion more after it became an order. But at the time of Buddha, it would have been more of a reformation of what was happening around. What are your observations on the existing social landscape in Sri Lanka before the age of Sangamitra? That was my
Yeah,
question. Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I feel that there might be problems in the practices of religion there, which might have actually led Visa to talk about a different religion. So yeah, actually I need to read upon that, and I would also be happy to listen people in the meeting have to say about that, about the situation or the condition of religion in Ceylon before the coming of some
Okay.
good
Okay, we could,
enlightenment.
if
Yeah.
anybody is would like to talk, would I invite them? I think Ajay was there. I don't know if this is still there.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Dr. Ajay.
Yes.
Welcome.
Actually, it was the casteist and Varna cleavages were there existing in Sri Lanka before Thissa, who was the contemporary of Ashoka and all. So definitely, even today, that kind of broader kind of some kind of casteist divisions and the Aboriginal communities, they are seen as lesser human beings in the dominant worldview. So that is there. Yeah, and when Ambedkar went there, he appealed to the Buddhists to treat their Aboriginal brothers as equal as human. So even today, that issue of social cleavage and stratification created through the Varna kind of worldview of Brahmanical Hinduism, this has been there in the whole of South Asia. It is there. Even in Indonesia and other parts of South Asia, this kind of social cleavages are there. So it was definitely there, and that actually provided a kind of possibility for Buddhism. But even after the introduction of Buddhism, as in many places of South India, these casteist or some kind of Varna divisions were have been continuing in disguise or in slightly altered ways. So definitely the social stratification has been there.
Okay, thank you. But the Hindus of Sri Lanka today, aren't they mostly people who migrated from the mainland during the colonial period as tea garden workers and things like that, mostly? Or are there also ethnic Hindus from the pre-Buddhist era in Sri Lanka? Would you know that? Maybe that's not, I don't know. That is just a question that came to my mind.
Yeah, mostly correct, Sujit. Mostly they are the plantation workers, actually brought there by British imperialism. But the former Hindus or the early Hindus or those who are believing in the pagan kind of traditions, many Vaishnavite kind of shrines, and also on the this northern regions of the islands, many Shaivite and Vaishnavite shrines were there, but those were actually implanted there by the brief Chola interim period. The Cholas have attacked, and for almost 60 to 70 years during the 9th and 10th centuries, Cholas of Tamilagam, they have conquered, and they have also established a brief reintroduction of the Hindu cults, especially Shaivite variety of things. What we call Hindu now, it's mostly say a post-British kind of phenomenon. Plantation workers, especially Tamil plantation workers in tea estates, they are actually the so-called Hindus today. All the other ancient settlers, they have become Buddhists, except some aboriginal communities. So what we today call Hindu, they are predominantly the descendants of the plantation workers brought there by the British.
And this interim Chola invasion could not by any means have wiped out Buddhism like it happened in parts of India, right? Buddhism survived that.
Yes, exactly. It was only a brief period, a few decades rather, 50 to 60 years of Chola regime. And then Buddhism came back with a kind of resurgence. They were operating from the forests and the highlands. So they came back and re-established Buddhism.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. It's clear. Yeah.
Dr. Shyma, it was indeed a very good presentation, and we truly got a lot of information from your talk. And one thing I was just thinking, I don't know much about this, the whole history and things like that. But one thing I came to my mind is like, whether Sangamitra was just a concept or a real person, whatever it is, the equality of gender was so much projected through Buddhism, which even today we are struggling to establish. That is what I felt all over the world. I'm not talking about any geography. Everywhere that struggle is still there. There's a dominance, and there are sort of a lot of laws, unwritten laws and rules which prevent women being showing or their full potency or capabilities in all the fields. And I know most of the mothers who have daughters have even now, even in this place, we think like we're all living in Canada, and everyone is so much of equality is there. Even today, we are struggling to have that sort of an equality. It is great to know, and so many centuries back, Buddhism showed that path, and women got converted just for that. It's great to know that. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with what you say. And yeah, I mean, although I am skeptical about the way or the present scenario or how it is within Buddhist monasteries, the situation of nuns in Buddhist monasteries. I do not know how it is now, and I don't know if Ajay Shekhar sir could tell us something about that. But conceptually at least, there are certain ideas like these, which or the very idea about travel, which is very empowering as far as women are concerned, just not available to them in other systems. But again, I do not know how their situation is, because we live in a very kind of patriarchal order in the society, so that could be corrupting any forms of religion for that matter.
Yeah.
You can only think about forms of emancipation within the system.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Once again, Thank you, Shyma. Thank you from MITRA and SNA Toronto.